Ladies and gentlemen, whom of you are now rather in the mood for an afternoon nap? My dad's a retired reverend, and I always used to tell him that he always talks in my sleep. So, if necessary, I'll talk in your sleep. Property investment, what are the factors that we consider? Now, this is interesting. This is according to two property gurus. John Luce from FNB and Jacques du Toit, senior economist from ABSA. And what we did is, Bianca, let me at this point in time, before you nod off, I always call for a round of applause for my lovely wife, because she is the one who puts all of this together. So let's give her a round of applause. So after looking at all of it, what they say and what they don't say, if you go and look on the internet, you will find lots of videos by John Luce and Jacques. And if you summarize what they say, it's the following. The factors we consider is the following: economic cycle, economic growth, inflation, interest rates. We've seen that, didn't we? We know when it's a downward trend, we realize is we're approaching the point where we literally start buying. When it's on its way up and when it peaks, very often we're reluctant to buy because prices have hiked. Why is this interesting? Is because it's exactly the opposite of what you would expect. But that's the reality. The property cycle, price trends, demand, supply conditions. We had a look at that. We had a look at the graphs. Investment horizon depending on economic and market conditions. Let me explain that. We spoke about Katu. Why do we not invest in Katu? Because if you look at the investment horizon, the market conditions and the economic conditions in the Northern Cape is of such a nature that it might be attractive for all sorts of people, but it's not an attractive environment for property investors. Location and area-related factors impacting property values, we've dealt with that. It's related. Property returns, important. When we look at a property and when we analyze that property, Bianca and I have a distinct advantage. We have access to all sorts of sophisticated computerized research systems. If we're interested in a property, we discussed this briefly just now, we have the capacity to research the history of this property from the very moment that it came into existence until this very moment. We can go and have a look in the deeds registry system when this property was registered for the first time. What was the purchase price? What were the title conditions? To whom was it sold? When? At what price? What were the bonds ever approved in respect of this property? What are the bonds at the moment, and how much are they registered for? Which bank or banks? How many bonds? It is frightening once you realize how much information I can get about you simply with your full names and surname and your identity number. And I will probably know more about you than you do yourself, and certainly than what your spouse would. So, why this is always interesting, and there's our problem as property investors, is what we can do, the access that we have and the systems that we have, means I can literally, from the moment this property came into existence, determine on the decimal the actual real capital growth over the total history and existence of this property. Okay, not the insula in Italy, but certainly in South Africa. So the interesting thing is we can also, via our systems, track the average market conditions in that particular area. We have, for example, a system called Agent IQ, where we can track the comparative sales over the past 12 or 24 months or whatever we choose. What is the problem from your perspective? Is normally a person who is an investor can only get access to these systems by spending a lot of money. And it is unfortunate, because preferably once you invest in an existing property, you would prefer to have that information. So we're in the process of developing a system where we can actually provide that service to the members. As you can imagine, there will be a small cost involved in it, because it costs us money. And we'll be introducing this service hopefully within the next 6 weeks. And we'll circulate it to all of you, where we can actually determine the comprehensive history of a particular property. Is there any interest in that? Is it worth a while? Should we carry on with that? Good. Next one, purpose of property investment. Remember, we spoke about this. What is your intention? What do you want to achieve with this particular investment? Is it balanced growth in capital, 8% per year on average, and 8% growth on income? Or do you want a significant capital growth? And you asked me the question. There are, in fact, properties where you get a 12% capital growth per annum. They are out there. And what is the interesting thing? They are situated where we don't invest. Cape Town. You get a 12% capital growth, but perhaps you get a 4% annual increase in income. Reasons for it. Cape Town is a very unique city, like New York, like Paris, like London. It is an international cosmopolitan city, and it attracts international purchasers who would buy from Sol Kerzner a roof unit, or whatever they call it, what is the word for it? Penthouse. Penthouse. It sounds as if they're pitching their tent on the roof. A penthouse for 90 million rand. And the person who lives and works in London and the United Kingdom buys it and sells it 3-4 months ago for 110 million rand. How's that for capital growth? But if you try and let it, that 110 million rand property, I promise you, you're not going to get a fraction of what you normally would accept as far as rental factor is concerned. And it's horses for courses. Good. The diversification of a property investment, Kerniels, where are you? You spoke about it just now. And I promised you I'll answer you. You spot on. Remember we said we do not buy in investments, new developments, where 70, 80, 90% of the owners will be investors, for the reasons we discussed. Similarly, you never purchase all your properties in one single development. Who's been doing that? I know you won't cop to it. The reality is this.